Chapter 87 Salvation of Manek Bhai. Manek Bhai was a Baniya by caste. He had come for Gurudev's darshan at Bhogi Bhai's insistence with great reluctance, saying, "I don't believe in that Guru of the Lohanas." Yet, after observing Gurudev's kindness, compassion, and humanitarian outlook at close quarters in Bilaspur camp, he chose to become his disciple immediately. When Manek Kaka would be angry, his temper would exceed that of the famous sage Durvash. But his faith in Ram Nam was as solid as a rock. On account of his temper, his only son had left him, and this pained him immensely. Gurudev consoled him, "Do not be sad. One who has no one of his own, I belong to him." Pujya Shri kept his promise till the very end. Later, after the passage of time, Manek Kaka came to Chitrakoot all alone for Gurudev's last darshan. His health was shattered by severe illness. He stayed there for a week. On Kartik Shuddh 5th, his condition worsened, and for the past 2 days he had been oscillating between life and death. 2 days back, one devotee had carried him for Gurudev's last darshan. Gurudev placed his benign hands on Manek Bhai's head in blessing, and after a few minutes sent him back to his rooms. Then Gurudev spoke softly, "Manek Bapa, wait for a couple of days. Why spoil everyone's Chaturthi?" Gurudev's birth date. On the morning of Chaturthi, Valji Bhai told Gurudev, "Manek Kaka is speaking incessantly and insisting on returning to Bombay. He is asking, 'Have you got my ticket for Bombay?' Pujya Shri replied, 'His ticket for the last journey is already booked for tomorrow.' All were stunned. In the evening, Vimu Benan asked Gurudev, 'Bhagwan, tomorrow is Tuesday. With your permission, may I go for parikrama of Kamadgiri?' Pujya Shri remained silent for some time and said, 'Vima beta, tomorrow everyone will go to Manek Kaka's marriage procession.' Exactly on Kartik Shuddh 5th, at 11:30 am, after serving meals to saints and Mahatmas, and after giving sweet rice to Arvind Bhai, who had vowed not to eat rice till Bihar project was over, Pujya Shri entered Manek Bhai's room, where Kaka was lying semi-conscious. Placing his benign hands on his forehead, Gurudev spoke sweetly. "Kaka, say Shri Ram, Kaka," opened his eyes and chanted Shri Ram 4 to 5 times, and gazing at Gurudev's face, he closed his eyes forever. Pujya Shri said, "Manek Kaka is gone." On returning from the crematorium, Gurudev said, "I think he was a great soul. His services in the I camp were unprecedented. None can avoid death, and considering this, we must strive to give happiness to others. After all, life is a bubble, and it is of no use if we grieve over it. One is born on account of his past deeds, and cessation of karma is death. This cycle of life and death will continue. Take care while you are alive, that your time is not wasted, because time once past never returns. Therefore, do your bhajan while there is still time." Manek Kaka's death was lucky. Place of pilgrimage, bank of Ganges, and vicinity of Guru. I myself came here thrice in the past to die. First time when the doctors diagnosed cancer, but I was saved. Second time I came here out of anguish, and yet I survived. Now for the third time I have the death wish. I instruct that all the ladies should prepare 2 Puran Polis for tomorrow, one for herself and one for someone else. As we celebrate birth, so we must celebrate a meritorious death. Before leaving Chitrakoot, Pujya Shri said, "When man is convinced that there is someone to protect him, then he becomes one with his protector, experiences non-duality with God. Therefore, commence your worship unto the Lord with true enthusiasm, because the Lord's worship is a matter of experience, not of discussion or discourse. Be like a judge while living in this world. While the judge hears a case in court, he pays full attention. But when the time is up, he leaves everything and returns home. Such attitude of detachment is essential for all of us. While meditating, if you cease your thought processes and enter the inner self, then alone will you be able to see the subtle universe. Truly, it is said, when I passed through this world, I behaved like the passer by through a market, who though he is in the marketplace, is not a buyer. Mirza Ghalib. Jai Bhagwan. Chapter 88. Koina Earthquake. The Koina earthquake of 11th December 1967 spread its toll of death and destruction to surrounding areas. Thousands were rendered homeless and were in a pitiable condition. Pujya Shri was in solitude at Jalki near Sholapur, and when Arvind Bhai, Keshubai and others approached him for Koina relief work, after detailed discussions, it was decided to provide houses for people uprooted from their homes by the earthquake. On hearing the news, volunteers from among the devotees reached Koina. Amidst mild tremors and strong winds, risking their lives, they started construction through skilled artisans. On 28th of January 1967, Pujya Shri visited Koina, saw the camp construction and the sample of a newly built house and left by night. One barrack was estimated to cost Rs 7,500, out of which 5,000 was given by the government and 2,500 was given by the Manav Rahat Mandal. In the long list of donors who had sent donations on account of their faith in the name of Gurudev, the leading names were Mafatlal Group, Janmabhoomi Earthquake Relief Fund, Times of India, Bhukamp Rahat Mandal, and employees of Burma Shell. Pujya Shri's only policy was to rush to the place from where humanity called out in distress, trust in God, and start working. As soon as the need was over, to send word to the donors not to send any more. In this relief work, about 500 new houses were built in the Koina region. Jai Bhagwan. Chapter 89. Pilgrimage to Pashupatinath. In 1968, when we were in Anantpur, it was decided to go to Pashupatinath in Nepal for the Mahashivratri. Despite his fatigue due to the journey to Dwarka, from which he had just returned, Gurudev decided to go over there on such an arduous journey for pilgrimage. Indifferent health, cough and fever could not shake his resolve. He kindly permitted me to accompany him on this holy pilgrimage. Originally, we were to travel in relative comfort by his personal station wagon, known as Hari Jeep. But while I packed up the luggage, a message reached me that we were now to go by a regular bus and to take minimum luggage for the journey. Since Pujya Shri was at Ramesh Bhaiya's place, I could not understand the reason for the change of plans. Later, I learnt that a patient who was in a critical condition had to be sent by Hari Jeep to Vidisha Hospital, and his condition did not permit bus travel. I was agitated. This meant that we were now to travel partly by bus and partly by train right up unto Kathmandu, and Gurudev's vows would not permit him to take even a glass of water on a train. Only such a saint can sacrifice his own comfort to be of solace to a patient in need. Because of shortage of time, we had to leave for Guna by bus immediately. Therefore, thereafter, our train journey commenced. We had to change trains thrice. I asked the coolie at a transit station for a wheelchair for Gurudev to save him from the fatigue of walking across long platforms and crossing over bridges while changing trains. Gurudev declined the use of a chair and gave me a peculiar look as though of rebuke and preferred to walk. At Kanpur, Bachu Bhai joined us. We crossed the Indian border and reached Birganj. Since we had enough money, we could have comfortably travelled by a taxi up to Kathmandu, but Gurudev's economic nature would not permit such extravagance, and we boarded a bus. Seeing his resolve to undertake all the discomforts consequent on such a journey to save money, we realize now that it was merely due to insistence of the rich devotees that he used means of comfort provided by them. But those means could not make him dependent on them for his equanimity of mind. He remained equanimous and unaffected in his ascetic simplicity like a lotus flower, which though situated in water, is not touched by its wetness. While boarding that bus, a fleeting vision of convoy of shining cars and palatial mansions of rich devotees which were always at the beck and call of Gurudev passed in front of my eyes. But in front of that huge but ordinary bus, meant for common man, those magnificent things looked like dwarves. This was the supremacy of simple asceticism over hedonistic mentality. After a whole night's journey, we reached Kathmandu, where the Pashupatinath temple is situated 3 miles away from the city on the banks of the river Vishnumati. Around the temple there was a dense crowd, resembling an ocean tide. I placed a blanket for Gurudev to sit on the river bank and a shawl as the protection from the cold. When I returned and did not see the blanket and the shawl, I stammered. He smiled ever so sweetly and said, "The one who was in greater need took them." This was the only reply. I shivered in imagination. The month of Magh and biting cold of Nepal. Surely the poor needy man's plight must have moved the compassionate and kind heart of Gurudev, and now by his grace the man must be enjoying the comfort of the shawl and the blanket. This journey was indeed meant to create a series of surprises for me. When we reached the temple, there was an endless queue of devotees waiting for darshan of Lord Pashupatinath. Sadhus with tilak of all designs were all around. It was indeed doubtful if we could have our darshan even after a wait of 3 hours. For a second my faith was shaken, but within a couple of minutes a boy scout in uniform approached us and said, "Come along, Baba, I will take you for darshan." It was as though Lord Mahadev had become eager and impatient to meet Gurudev. The boy took us right up to the inner temple. Gurudev bowed his head with reverence to Mahadevji, and I bowed to my Shiv, Swarup, Gurudev. While I was doubtful whether the dense crowd would permit me to have even a distant glimpse of Mahadevji, it was only on account of Pujya Shri that I got this rare opportunity to have darshan from so near the idol on the sacred day of Mahashivratri. Thus my mind bowed down to Lord Shiva and Gurudev. Next day he said, "Bachu Bhai, it is essential to do charity in places of pilgrimage. So please invite all the Mahatmas and the poor and the needy within this campus for dinner." The Mahatmas preferred to have pawa and curd with sugar, whereas for the needy, puri, vegetables and sweets were ordered. Within a moment, diners assembled in throngs, and Pujya Shri served them with his own hands. He served the food briskly, amidst voices raised in clamour. "Baba, sweets are needed here. Behenji, give us puri. Baba, let me have a little more sugar." Those sweets, puris and vegetables, and dahi pawa for the Mahatmas were inscribing in golden letters the maxim, "Wealth has 3 ends: charity, use, or else destruction." These words uttered by Gurudev from time to time proved to be true. He used to say, "Charity, whether done in the name of God, or out of compassion or on humanitarian grounds, is good. One who avoids doing charity and spends his wealth only on himself is headed for the third end of wealth, that is, destruction." Jai Bhagwan. Chapter 90 Dharai Camp. On 9th March 1968, the first operation was performed. When Gurudev entered the ward, a patient had severe eye pain and was restless. Gurudev placed his loving hand on his head and the doctors gave him the necessary treatment and he got relief. One Brahmin volunteer asked, "Maharajji, you entered this ward with your sacred thread and even touched the patient. Was that proper?" Gurudev replied solemnly, "Only those who haven't got Ram mantra would get affected by touching patients. Ram Nam has the power to purify the most impure. While serving a man in distress, one must not discriminate on the basis of caste or creed. A sadhu would not spare even his own body while serving others. With his sanctifying touch, he has the potential to make others like himself sadhus." Another important development that took place at the Dhar was on the 30th of March 1968, under Gurudev's directions. The Satguru Seva Sangh was founded with Arvind Bhai as its chairman. On 22nd of March, the camp concluded with 4,000 operations. While in Ujjain, two representatives of Akashvani in Indore Bhopal came for Gurudev's interview with tape recorders. The first question was purpose of Kumbh congregation, and secondly, on approaching Gurudev, the interviewer commenced in his usual factitious manner, "Babaji, give us your introductory background." The reply, "Introductory background? Even God does not seem to know my background. Real saints need no introduction. It is indeed futile and a sheer waste of time to search the origin of a river and the background of a sadhu." Second question was, "What is your basic principle?" "That is proper," said Gurudev, and added, "My principle is that all of us should be happy and without ailments. All should have benevolent outlook and none of us should fall prey to sorrows and sufferings." Now the interviewer's tone softened. "Will you please throw some light on the purpose of the Kumbh?" Gurudev replied, "The country can prosper only if the society were to adopt and propagate religious virtues. Emperor Harsha commenced his custom of holding Kumbh congregation with that idea in mind. Formerly, when there were no rails or other swift means of communication, the Mahatmas utilized these congregations to meet and exchange their experiences at one spot in every 3 years, whereby social reforms could be thought out from these interactions of ideas. Now all that remain is mere rituals. Formerly there were learned exchanges and discussions, but now only roti remains to be exchanged. Once Ranchoddasji asked for certain instructions concerning Badrinarayan Annakshetra. Gurudev told him that henceforth each one of them should take his own decisions, consulting their own conscience and God, since he would not be available forever to take such decisions. Till the Kumbh congregation lasted, meals were provided by organizing bhandaras for thousands of saints and Mahatmas. Jai Bhagwan. Sarve Sukhina Santu, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukham Apnuyat.